My name is Connor Flynn, and I run Bigfoot Anonymous. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I moved down to Florida about 8 years ago in search of strange things. It all started up in Brunswick, where we had a legend of a dog man, and that was before the term dog man even existed. We called it the Sleepy Hollow Wolf Man. And when I was 12 years old, I had an encounter with two of my friends, and we saw a big, hulking, dark being in the backyard. And that really jump-started all of this. I knew there was something else out there, and everything was not being explained how it was. I'm originally from Cleveland, and I'm an author, filmmaker, treasure hunter, and outdoor explorer. I spent a lot of times going to the national parks and camping looking for waterfalls and Native American Indian mounds. I am a true believer of everything is connected. I believe we are all in this realm and all energy is one. I started off writing for my school newspaper about sports, and eventually, even throughout the year, it was just not enough for me, and I had to dive into the deep legends of our town. In small Brunswick, Ohio, right around the corner from my house, was a place called Irma's. It's where a woman supposedly killed her family and then hung herself in the top attic. On Fridays and the weekends, and after football practice in October, all of us would sneak into Irma's house through the cellar, creep through the middle floor, and then end up upstairs in the attic where she killed herself. And I feel like just being an investigator, and before the TV shows were showing it, we were diving into it. And after a few years of it, I started documenting it with photos and catching orbs and writing down my stories and encounters. And it turned into my story, my first book, Erie Swamps Road Trip to Eden. I grew up on Lake Erie, fishing for a lot of walleye and perch, and I always heard the story of the Lake Erie monster, South Bay Bessie. She's a cousin of Loch Ness. Long ago, about 80 years ago, two fishermen went missing on Lake Erie, and there was a $100 bounty put on the monster's head. I always thought that was very cool. There's a bar over on the edge of Lake Erie that you could go underneath and feed Bessie. They give you a bucket of chum and you throw it in the water and you can see all the fish eat, and it's like fishing, or it's like feeding the Lake Erie monster. And as a kid doing that, it just made it even more real and fun. Another legend that I grew up near was the Crybaby Bridge. Of course, now that I've grown up and done a lot of research, there's Crybaby Bridges everywhere. There's actually one pretty close to Hartselle around here. A group of us might go tonight and check it out. We will see. I am a big believer that dark energy attracts some of these beings. You hear a lot of situations where Bigfoot encounters, Wolfman encounters, and even aliens show up at these high area full of energy. Of course, LBL is the famous spot for the werewolf attack, but then it's also very famous for a bunch of UFO encounters. So again, I think the sky is tracking the ground. When Bigfoot legends started for me, after my encounter, I started diving into it. I found out the Ohio Bigfoot was called the Ohio Grassman. And a lot of legends and stories said that he was actually much bigger than the Pacific West Coast Bigfoot, Patty looking, and then also much bigger than the skunk ape. I thought it was pretty cool. A couple of the legends down in moonshine territory, a lot of the guys said that their stills would be totally ruined and ransacked by these unknown forces until they started leaving a gift or some kind of bartering system. So they'd leave the fermented corn and fruit as some kind of offering for peace or to share the land. And hearing that story kind of connected me to the original Bluff Creek footage, the famous Patty footage that everybody has seen when she's walking across. We got to ask ourselves, that is some of the clearest Bigfoot footage out there. How was that obtained? And they tell us, it was two cowboys on a 5-day journey into the woods and they got lucky. Well, if you look deeper into it, you see that they were actually foresting that area to create roads, and a lot of the equipment was being damaged. Sounds like the Ohio Grassman. A lot of the equipment was being damaged, so supposedly they sent a hunt team in to exterminate the problem. And 50 some years later, now we know it was the Patty situation. It's very interesting. It's crazy to believe that the number one evidence of Bigfoot has a deeper story to it. I love that. There's always more to it in this Bigfoot encrypted and paranormal realm. The Cuyahoga Valley National Park is the hot spot for the Grassman, and that was one of our main spots that we grew up camping and fishing at. One encounter that I had with my buddy Jake, we were going to this place called Buttermilk Falls, and it's a deep hike into the woods, and we get a couple miles down the creek, and we smell a horrible rotting smell. And we searched all around for like a dead raccoon in the water or a dead fish, and couldn't find anything. And then we end up making it back to the waterfall and hang out there for a few hours. Kind of felt like we were being watched. Then when we headed back, no smell at that same location. So if it was something dead, that smell would have been lurking there. But we feel like we were being stalked by the Grassman. And of course, people ask all the time, have you seen Bigfoot? What's your encounters? And I have seen things that I can't explain. You know, giant shadows, the back end of creatures, things out of the corner of my eye. But a lot of the encounters are feeling, hearing, smelling. So you got to open up all your senses to really tap into the Bigfoot realm. My grandparents have a farm down by Wheeling, West Virginia, in the Ohio Valley. And that is a very cool spot because there's a lot of Bigfoot reports. But if you look back to the early 1900s, there's a ton of newspaper articles about giants. And those range from 7 feet to 15 feet in the Ohio Valley. I want to know, where did those giants go? And what is their connection to Bigfoot? I've heard many stories of these giants being a whole separate race than Bigfoot. And then I've also heard of them merging. But I do just want to dive deeper into it. Mud fossils, giants, and a lot of the ley lines in our history, they hold these mounds that have magic ability. And I believe that if you follow the mounds, it's just like a map to this world. It's a grid. It's crazy when some of the highest level energy, like the pyramids of Gaza, they line up with the Nazca lines. They also line up with different pyramids and temples in the Amazon. And they all also follow the stars in the sky. So it's crazy that back 200 years ago, there was a divine connection between humanity and Earth and the system that we live in. And sadly, I think, that has been lost over the years of our responsibilities and just petty lifestyle. But if we could really tap in, I believe, we are capable of many things. Just us human beings, we live a life that is still a little unexplained. We dream at night and we create worlds in our heads. We remember faces in our dreams, and then right when you wake up, it's gone. It's different. The connection between a mother and a child, a mother knows when a child is in distress, and then a child knows when the mother is nearby. That is inside, that is our DNA, that is our nature. A lot of people believe Sasquatch is magical. Well, I believe we are magical too. To tap onto more of the unexplained stuff, love. When you love somebody, or when you fall in love, or when you are loved back, there is magic. There is something that cannot be calculated inside of that. And I also, tap into deja vu. We've all heard the whole black cat theory. If you see deja vu, you've lived this life before. If you see a black cat, you're reliving a moment. But I believe when you feel deja vu, that is your instincts telling you you're in the right place. Things just start aligning. I know a lot of people are into synchronicity. When you start seeing 333, 111, 444, the messages are everywhere. I believe, the Fibonacci spiral is everywhere in nature and also inside of us. And I like to tap into knowing who I am, because to search for something, that's half the battle. Because they will see you coming, they will feel you coming. So you have to put yourself in a situation that you will be ready for something to happen. At my grandparents' farm, we would hunt and explore. They have 180 acres in southern Ohio, right by West Virginia. And my cousin Eddie, when I was a young boy, came home one day after a hunt, terrified that something was paralleling him down by the tree stand. And I believe I know what it was. I think it was the Ohio grassman, because Eddie said every time that he stopped, it would stop. And that the whole time he heard owl calls. And of course my grandpa said that was not very common. I talked to a couple of my grandfather's neighbors over the years, and they have had encounters too. I haven't been able to crack my grandfather, but he does talk about all the bear and bobcat and panther that are on the property. So as some people know, the panther is known to be wiped out of some areas, and then there's sightings, So sometimes it's just, you got to look a little bit closer. I got really into giant mounds after I grew up, and there was 2 mounds in my backyard. Ohio is the land of 10,000 mounds, so they are everywhere. Sadly, a lot of them have been depleted due to excavation and expansion of roads, but many of them still stand. One of them is the Adena Mound, and it's right on the Ohio River, and they say that there's a burial structure underneath. And I've seen newspaper articles from some of the excavations, and some of them reported 12-foot giant skeletons. So again, the fact that that area was once a reservoir for these type of creatures, I definitely believe that there is going to be some stragglers along the lines after. Not far from here in Georgia is the Kolomoki Mounds, and it's a 60-foot pyramid up in Georgia, and there has been a goat man sighting near it. And my buddy Ronnie and I went out there one night with the video cameras rolling, and we got some weird cries and yells. And then I also took many pictures, and we've seen some weird shadows and unexplainable things. Again, when you're taking pictures on a burial mound or near Native American mounds, sometimes maybe the energy just reveals itself in the pictures. A little tip to capture paranormal encounters or energy on your camera. Someone told me this. When you take the picture, look away with your eyes. Just take the picture and look away. That allows this energy to reveal itself. So I always love that. Things happen when you finally stop looking. Sometimes we all just gotta, when we lose our keys, we just gotta go to the bathroom, and then we end up finding our keys and wallet. Just gotta follow your destined path. So I moved to Florida about 8 years ago, and I lived out in my car for a while, just staying at state parks and different campgrounds that I could camp at and just kind of be off the grid. And I moved directly to Lakeland, Florida. And the hot spot around there is the Green Swamp. There is tons of legends there of crashed planes that were carrying drug money, illegal runaway murder suspects that go hide out there in these dingy, dodgy shacks, and then the cryptids. There is the coyote woman, which is like a shapeshifter woman that will lure you in with her beauty and then kill you when you're in her den. And then one of my favorites is the vampire owls. They are called the Stakini. It's a Native American vampire. And there was a war or a battle there that had more than 100 deaths. And if you look deeper into it, some people say the Stakini was actually responsible because she would go after men that were impure in their heart. Very interesting. Luckily, I survived my campouts in the Green Swamp. There was a lot of strange activity there. I went hiking with Nana Boss and Matt Williamson from Supernatural Spectrum one day after a campout with Stacy Brown. And part of Stacy Brown's experiments is that he does a chant to Pan, and it opens up a portal for dark things to happen. Well, less than 12 hours after that chant was completed, we were being stalked in the Green Swamp by some unseen force that was knocking in a circle around us. It was not the first time that I felt being stalked, so it was familiar to me, but Nana Boss and Matt were definitely stunned, and they said they don't know if they're ever going to go back to the Green Swamp without a whole brigade with them to protect them. Another one of my favorite locations to research is over in Louisiana. It's about 20 minutes from New Orleans. It's called the Honey Island Swamp. It is really famous for the rougarou. M.K. Davis, who is a prominent Bigfoot researcher, that is his neck of the woods now, along the Peace River and the Honey Island Swamp. I went there and I did a little boat tour, and I got a picture of a 9-foot carcass that was bloated and smelled horrible. The gators refused to eat it, and the boat refused to get close. But I got some good pictures of it. Some people say it's a deer. Other people say it's a burnt gator, but it's brown and reddish. So I believe it is either a kill of the rougarou or maybe a offspring that died. But it's definitely interesting. You guys can check out that picture on my page and everything. I would love to hear anybody else's take on it. But the Honey Island Swamp, the footage there is taken of a giant creature that actually predates the Bluff Creek footage. Very cool. And what's awesome about it is they got closer to where the encounter happened and they found a bunch of footprints. And they were 3-toed footprints. So it's a little different than the human-looking 5-foot Bigfoot. And then also different than the skunk ape footprints that Dave Shealy's been getting down in the Everglades of 4-toed. So it's interesting just to see 3-toed up to 5- and 6-toed. A lot of people say that these deformations is due to inbreeding. After 100 years of mating inside the same society, maybe some of the genetics will cross. When I moved down to Florida, I still remember when I moved out. I moved from Lakeland to the Panhandle, and I still remember thinking, where the hell did my mom move? It was in the middle of nowhere, and I was thinking, I'm gonna have to figure something out. And within the first week of living in the Panhandle, I found out about the Ocheesee Pond Wildman. And that is one of the coolest stories out there that is kind of unheard of nationwide, worldwide. In 1883, the Native American villages and some of the other locals were experiencing a giant creature stalking them while in the swamp. It would follow the women and children and then try to intimidate the men. And after a while, in 1884, they put together a team and actually captured this creature in the Devil's Half Acre of Ocheesee Pond. Pretty cool. They took it to the Tallahassee, to the capital, and the governor said, no way, no how. Put them in Chattahoochee Hospital, lock them up, throw away the key. So right by my house, and one of my best friends is actually the IT guy at Chattahoochee Hospital. So I spent a lot of time researching the Ocheesee Pond Wildman. And a lot of reports say that he died after 3 years on the campus, and they actually buried him with a bunch of Native Americans and then put a building on top of him. Thank you, Andrew Jackson. He was the first one to hold down the Bigfoot legend. But it's kind of cool that our own Stacy Brown here, he actually went to the state capitol and put in a Freedom of Information Act and got a little bit more information about the story and some handwritten journal entries by the governor. He's going to expand on that a little bit more, but let me just tell you, there's more covered up. Of course, there's some that have been removed, and certain parts of those documents are nowhere to be found. It's very interesting. But if you go back to Ocheesee Pond these days, all the locals have stories, and they're my type of people. One guy, his name's Old John, and he's going deaf, so he has a hearing aid. And he's an old radio guy, so he tinkers with his own stuff. And he says he's able to work it into frequencies that he can listen to them bellow in the swamp, and it sounds like they're just right next to him. It's pretty cool. His son drew a picture 30 years ago of a creature he saw, and it looks exactly like Bigfoot. He was about 6 or 7, and it has a brief description of the encounter. He saw it in the backyard multiple times, and then he saw it staring at him. And I just think that's amazing that a young child, unbiased, untouched by the world, gave their unfiltered truth, and and it was the wild man, it was the hairy man. A couple other people at Ocheesee Pond talk about stories of kids actually getting kidnapped by the Bigfoot back in the day, but they were actually released like a day later. And of course, if you dug it deep enough into these Bigfoot legends, you hear these stories of Bigfoot or a bear taking a little girl into the woods and keeping her warm all night and taking care of her. And others that Bigfoot took a little kid in and ate his shoe. I definitely think, as it gets reported as a bear or an unknown creature, I think these were Bigfoot legends. There was also 2 skeletons that were found at Ocheesee Pond up in a tree. I don't know if those were dead bodies or Bigfoot bodies. I've heard different reports. My last report from Ocheesee Pond was Uncle John, old John, told me that a neighbor of his actually found a cave, a small cave in the side, and it held 2 mummies. I don't know if the mummies were Native American or Bigfoot, but honestly that might connect back in those days. It's interesting stuff. I've been camping in Tennessee the last few years. Flat Rock and Lucas actually have joined me in the Alabama campouts and Tennessee campouts, and we've had a lot of fun. One of the mountains that we camp at is called Cohutta, and Cohutta translates to big frog, and that goes back to the mud fossils. I believe that a lot of the mountains used to be the giants of the old age, the old times, the old world before things changed. And Cohutta Mountain looks like a big frog. So I always made the joke that we were camping on the back of a big frog, and it sure felt like it. I know Blue-Eyed Northern, she's a woman from Ohio. She would always camp along the cliffside, and 2.5 years in a row, she always had encounters with them throwing pebbles down on her, and also sticks. Flat Rock had a couple encounters, and I was with them, just seeing eye shine and hearing strange noises. Some crazy stuff. A little south of there, near Hollins. It's in Alabama. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with it. Hollins. It's near Talladega National Forest. Talladega National Forest has a plethora of Sasquatch encounters, but it's also had some murders and a lot of other dark stuff happen, and I think that all connects. When I camped at Hollins, we were told that we were at a spot that a hunter was ripped limb from limb, all 4 limbs, by a Bigfoot or a Bigfoot family after shooting his gun or aiming his gun at them. We were told by an ex-Special Forces or ex-police guy, ex-CIA, yeah, the top of the line, well, the alphabet boys. But what was super crazy about that is everybody stayed at the campground, and during the day we walked up to the supposed site that the man was ripped apart from. Lucas and I had a great idea to camp there, right under the tree that the body was laid at. And we did these meditations that we tried to bring these creatures in with unity and vibrations and just energy. I believe that if you can connect to them a little a ways from who we are right here, you kind of meet them halfway, you'll have a little better luck. After the meditations, we started hearing these weird grunt sounds, but they were not intimidating. It was basically just allowing us to know we were not alone. It was a crazy feeling. We also saw some stuff in the sky. It may have been satellites, but when you're out there in the forces and the elements, it was definitely something special. Another hot spot in Alabama is Flat Rock. It's near Evergreen, the town that loved Bigfoot. If you guys have ever seen that documentary, it's a fun, charming, small town documentary about just people that came together for their love of the hairy man. I'm at Flat Rock at the Florida Bigfoot Conference, and it's been legendary ever since. He has some incredible evidence of audio of these things yelling. There's one that's like, hey! And you can hear them clear as day. There's a couple other audio of them coming up to the trailer and smacking the crap out of the side. And then a lot of them just weird sounds in the forest. So I went up there for a documentary with my buddy Matt and Tyler, and we camped out there for 2 nights. And the very first night, we had a parabolic dish, and we were sitting around the fire, and we had Flat Rock's dog with us, Boo. And Boo is the Bigfoot dog, and dogs, you guys already know, dogs have those senses. They can sense it out. We saw she was alerted, so we knew they were close. And then we started hearing these chucks. And how I saw it is they would chuck to get the dog's attention, all of our attention over here, and then they would move during the chuck and kind of relocate. And shortly after, with the dish picked it up and our ears picked it up, we heard 3 of them communicating and singing to each other, harmonizing throughout the forest. And we got it recorded on a parabolic dish and a mini USB recorder. And we actually took it and sent it to Doug Hychek, the guy who created Monster Quest, one of the highest up, most respected names in this community, someone I still hold in very high regard. And he was very impressed with it, but he put it through a bunch of programs and realized that it was at frequencies that no human being can recreate. And then he sent it out west to compare with some of the guys in Washington State and the Pacific Northwest. And it was very cool when it actually connected frequency-wise with some of the teams out in the Sierra camps. So it was cool. Some Florida boys could go up to Alabama to a backyard of our boy and get some very, very crucial evidence. The fact that 3 of them were harmonizing, some say it's some of the best audio evidence recorded on the East Coast. Very cool. I also camped at Cades Cove up in Tennessee with Flat Rock. It's where Dennis Martin's family actually camped at a day before he went missing. It's very, very out there. No cell service, and it is a climb. You have to climb the Dragon's Tail and through the Smoky Mountains just to get there. So when you get there, it's ultra rewarding. You are so secluded, and it's just you, the bear, and the Bigfoot. But as Flat Rock set up camp, I walked around alone as it got dark, and that was one of the scariest hikes I ever had. Nothing really happened, but just knowing the dark history of someone actually being taken from that region, and all the other stories of feral people, and it was terrifying. We saw a couple deer, and then we actually got drilled by a rainstorm through the night. So who knows what the creatures were doing, honestly, throughout the thunder and the flooding. But it was a remarkable time, that is for sure. I think Tennessee is definitely a very special place. I think the Tennessee Titans are literally named after Bigfoot. They should literally adopt the Bigfoot mascot instead of the weird soldier knight thing that they have right now. I was in a movie called The Woodman, filmed in the Smoky Mountains, and it's on Tubi. If any of you guys have Tubi, it's an awesome found footage movie where I play the opening character. I'm a Bigfoot researcher, Connor Flynn, and I'm going to the Smoky Mountains looking for Bigfoot, and then I see that it's not Bigfoot, it's something different. It's feral people, it's a tribe of these unmarked beings. And the fact that it combines the cryptids and the unknown is a really cool story. But while we were filming that, everybody was asking me about the real life Bigfoot story. So it was very fun to combine fact and fiction and just move forward. But I definitely highly recommend The Woodman on Tubi. It's a fun one. I'm the opening character, so if you came for me, you can bow out after the first about 8 minutes. But hopefully they'll bring me back in the sequel, maybe revive me or something. I also made a movie recently called Tate's Hell. When I moved to the Panhandle, I love GPS. I love the maps, so I'm always just looking on maps trying to find just something. And when I moved to the Panhandle, something grabbed my eye. Tate's Hell. You see hell on the map, and it's like, what the heck? So I started looking up the legend, and it really called me. It's about a guy named C.B. Tate that went into a cursed swamp chasing his dog, and 7 days later he crawled out saying he just came from hell and died. When you look deeper into the legend, there's some cool information out there. They say that he was being stalked by swamp giants. Of course, I believe swamp giants would be the good old skunk ape. They also say that he was taken care of every night by an Amazon woman. I think that is like nurtured and probably also hooking up with, or sleeping together. I think the Amazon woman was a female Bigfoot. I don't think it was a woman from Africa or even a Native American woman. I believe it was a female Sasquatch. A lot of people also say that after he was bitten by the rattlesnake and all the other crazy poisonous things that latched onto him, his mind started going crazy. But if you go down to Tate's Hell, you can definitely feel a presence out there. So I made a movie last year called Tate's Hell, where I played Tate, and I got hunted down by the Bigfoot and crawled out. And it was pretty funny because the whole legend is he crawls out and he finds the guy, and then the last words are, "I'm CB Tate, and I came from hell." So Stacy Brown, our lead guy, he plays the guy that finds me at the end. And we did one take of it where I have blood in my mouth because I'm dying, and I'm like talking to him and mumbling, and he's like, "Just go for it, man." So the second take, I just spit all the blood in my mouth right on his face, and it said, "I'm CB Tate, and I came from hell." And once it cut, he broke character and just smiled, and we felt like we made something special. Now this year, Stacy rewrote the Tate's Hell legend, just a different adaptation of it, and we're actually going into production for it in 2 weeks. We're really hoping both projects come together and there will be a full-length Tate's Hell. But I definitely advise you guys to dive into the story, and if you guys are ever visiting Panama City, please take the short detour and check out Tate's Hell. It is special. I went there with a ghost box and with all the static and stuff, and it was kind of cool to hear some disembodied voices come in that could match up with the legend. Some interesting stuff. My Bigfoot film career started kind of at the bottom of the barrel. It's a movie called Zillafoot. It's half Godzilla, half Bigfoot, and I play a cryptid research officer that the military brings in for special information. And I tell them that the Zillafoot's coming in and we're doomed, and basically they're like, "Get out of here, man." And then everything I say in the movie ends up happening true. And it's severely one of the worst movies ever made, but the cover's pretty cool, Zillafoot. And I used to be loud and proud about it. Now I'm lucky enough a couple of years later to kind of say it like tongue-in-cheek, like it's a fun thing I worked on, but it's just silly as heck. Zillafoot. While we're on the silly thing, I see my boy Justin here. He's a filmmaker. This is actually the first time we've met in person. We were brought together by our buddy Janice Click. He is a legend from Missouri that makes these weird cursed films on VHS. And that really called to me because I'm a DIY guy, so I like to just make it happen myself, and Janice Click was doing that. And he made a movie called Squatch Junkies, that there's these junkies with a bunch of meth in the woods that they're camping out, and their Bigfoot camp gets ravaged by a Sasquatch, and then he eats the drugs and then goes on a meth killing spree. So the battle of Squatch Junkies versus Zillafoot. Hopefully we can get that on Netflix in 2026, you know. We will see, hopefully. But definitely legend. The last movie I'm going to talk about working on today is the closest one to my heart. It's called Huggin' Molly. I actually just got the DVDs to it printed yesterday, so today is the official release date of it. It was a lifetime dream to write and make my own feature film. Short films, yeah, they're short films, but to make an actual movie, that calls to me, man. I remember watching movies as a kid and being like, I want to do that. So I wrote a movie about Huggin' Molly. She's a witch in Abbeville, Alabama, off of 431. Have any of you guys been down to Abbeville? It's about 2 hours south of here. But they say that after dark, Huggin' Molly will come out and patrol the woods and the streets of town. And if she catches you after dark, she will squeeze you so hard that your bones break and scream in your ear till you go insane. You better hope you go deaf first. So that was always one of my favorite legends, because I would drive up there and it'd say on the town sign, "Welcome to Abbeville, home of Hug and Molly," and it has the witch like running on the sign. And I thought it was the craziest thing, that the cryptid actually made it to the town, registry, actual population. So I wrote a legend about my sister and I. My sister got a job up in Alabama, and she moves up there, and she goes missing. And I don't hear from her for 3 weeks and can't get any answers, and the cops in the small town are running me in circles. So, twin brother, I gotta go find her. So I go up to Alabama and meet all these strange people and get misguided and misdirected, and then eventually the sun goes down and the witch comes out. But it's definitely my proudest movie. I got DVD copies of it over there for $10. Sealed and everything. It's going to be coming out next month, premiering during October, hopefully for a Halloween vibe. But I am so proud of it. Stacy's in it. John Urban, our first speaker, actually gave me some artwork for Hug and Molly, and he made her very good looking. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because all the other drawings were like, she looked horrible and disgusting. But John's made her look, like admirable. And I like that, because a lot of the witch stories and mermaid stories is they're beautiful and they lure these men in and then they snatch them. So I just like to carry basically all the different angles. And I highly recommend going to Abbeville, but stay inside when the sun goes down. There is a restaurant called Hug and Molly's as well, and they have some of the best milkshakes, and a cool bar in there as well. Highly recommend it, and please keep your eye out for that next month, because that is honestly my dream come true, and it's, I don't know, it's just very special to me. A couple local legends down by me in the Panhandle. Some funny names. One is called the Two-Egg Stump Jumper. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the town of Two-Egg. Literally T-O-W space E-G-G, Two-Egg. It all started because it was a very poor town, and there was one market right in the center of town, and they said if you brought 2 eggs from your farm, you could trade it for milk, or you could trade it for vegetables. So it was a barter system. I think we should get back to that. I think individualism and humanity, we really got to look out for each other, especially with all the farmland and corporations taking over America. So definitely be there for one another, 100%. They say the Two-Egg Stump Jumper is an aggressive Sasquatch. They say he's short and stocky. How I visualize him is Shrek. He looks like Shrek, like an ogre, with his head right on his shoulders, no neck, very mad, just like Shrek's hungry. One of my friends, Ronnie Stewart, had an encounter. He was fishing in Two-Egg, and some creature jumped down from a tree and shook the ground, and him and his buddy were out. They did not get a visual, but they could feel it and hear it. It's very interesting stuff. Another one is the Hog-Nosed Bear. My buddy Tristan, it's a legend of his grandfather's near Chipley, Florida. It is like the cave bear, the short-faced cave bear. It's like an extinct bear from about 800 years ago, but some say that some have lived long enough in the caves, or maybe they have mated, and this is a later generation of one. But the hog-nosed bear, my buddy Tristan has had multiple encounters on his property. One was him and his sister were playing soccer outside and heard a giant roar, ran inside. That was one of their first ones. And then another one was kind of weird. His mom has an encounter that she came home and saw that a tarp was in the backyard and it had a bunch of dead animals on it. And then something was seen pulling the tarp into the woods. Now, I don't know, that's pretty revolutionary. I wish she could have filmed it, but the fact that she was able to relay the message is pretty crazy. But the fact that these things are going after roadkill or maybe killing local animals, lock your pets up. The Apalachicola National Forest is a huge hotspot for skunk ape and weird activity. Jim Morrison used to actually hang out there his freshman year at FSU. He used to hang out at a place called Leon Sinks, and he wrote a poem about one of the sinkholes. That place is known for Sasquatch. So I wonder if good old Jim Morrison, while he was tripping acid out there, seen anything or felt anything. But in the most recent years, there was a guy named Kevin Saunders, and he was good friends with Kerry Arnold from Bigfoot Odyssey, and he did an interview a couple of years ago talking about having a telepathic encounter with a female Sasquatch in the Apalachicola National Forest. And basically she connected to him through mind speak and then brought him to a safe place in the woods and then revealed herself to him. And pretty special stuff. In that same place, the Apalachicola National Forest, that river leads directly up to my favorite place in Florida, the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, Florida, 27 of the 28 trees in the Bible are in that preserve. Pretty crazy. Ocheesee Pond, where the wild man was captured in the 1800s, falls also in that preserve. The third hotspot in that preserve is Stacy Brown's spot. In 2012, Stacy and his father filmed an 8-foot skunk ape running across the trail at Torreya State Park. And Torreya is right along the Apalachicola National Forest. So the fact that Ocheesee Pond, where one was captured, Stacy Brown's spot Torreya, where one was filmed, and then Apalachicola, where there's more than a dozen encounters, are all connected by the Apalachicola River, I believe that's like a water highway. And of course, you hear a lot of researchers say that anywhere near water is where you're going to start having encounters. Of course. During my adventures, I find a lot of cool treasure. I found over 300 pounds of glass bottles. Some are Dr. Pepper glass bottles, some are little potion bottles and perfume bottles, and others are giant, I guess it would be alcohol bottles. It would be like a gallon. But those are always fun. It's kind of cool because you get to clean up the forest and find treasure. And then if you can, sell it or give it to somebody that can appreciate it, it's like a beautiful cycle just working itself. I love it. I also do a lot of arrowhead hunting on private property to be illegal. But the first arrowhead I ever found was it was nearby the Chippewa River, where there's been a lot of Native American settlements and also Bigfoot encounters. But I felt like after I found my first arrowhead and my first large piece of pottery, I felt like I leveled up as an explorer. And it's like a lot of my searching and hoping and all those times going on Facebook groups looking for tips, it finally paid off. And it was very special. We almost were able to find a full bowl of pottery. And it was very cool. My mom was with me. I went kayaking and I found it. And then I waited until my mom pulled the car up to pick me up, and I was like, "Come find this." And then we dove into the mud. It was very, very cool. I also find a lot of fossils. There's a place called Spring Creek in Marianna, Florida, that I've been part of teams that have found mammoth tusk. I found megalodon teeth and a lot of other fauna, old megafauna from the old days. Maybe giant deer and giant sloth, all the old fauna that we used to have here in the Florida wilds. My love for shark teeth started down in Panama City when I used to visit my aunt. But the fact that you could go, and that was of course on the beach, and you expect shark teeth there. But when you can find freshwater shark teeth, that is treasure, guys. And if you guys ever come down to Florida, I highly recommend going down to the Peace River. There is more than 100 people that will take you out and show you some very cool locations and get you in touch with who we used to be. And I think that's what it's all about. One random thing that I find a lot of is license plates. A lot of people, I guess, used to just ditch their license plates in the woods for some reason. But I have a nice collection of like 5 or 6 license plates that I found. And I reuse those in the movies that I use for props of missing people. Some cool spots I highly recommend that I've worked with and know the owners of. Down in the Everglades, Skunk Ape headquarters is ran by my friend David Sheely. It is a cool research center / zoo. They have some of the largest snakes in captivity there. They have alligators and a lot of other cool animals. But also they have all of Dave's cool evidence. Dave was on National Geographic and Unsolved Mysteries after the millennium. after he encountered a skunk ape moving as fast as a deer through the swamp in waist-high water. The footage is very cool to check out. It is still being picked up to this day by paranormal TV shows being debated. But if you guys are ever in the Everglades, I highly recommend it. He has a bunch of campgrounds back there as well, and those big gator trucks that can ride through the swamp. It's a really fun time. He's actually made an offer to Stacy and I to come down there and move into those cabins and host tours. So if I ever get kicked out of where I'm living now, I think I'm going to move to the Everglades and just be the skunk ape's neighbor. Not too far from here, regionally wise, Cherry Log, Georgia. That's where the Georgia Bigfoot Museum is, and you cannot miss it if you drive past it. It is awesome. It has a bunch of Native American stuff outdoors and giant Bigfoot sculptures. If you go over to the bookshelf there, the first book I wrote, Erie Swamps, Big Road Trip to Eden, it is there. So it's cool that I feel like I'm a part of history, at least accepted into some kind of research moving things forward. But it's a very cool spot. If you go and they have a scalp from Nepal, they have a finger bone from a Bigfoot type creature. They have a lot of Bigfoot casts and a lot of cool memorabilia that could bring you a little closer to the action. It's a very cool spot. One of my favorite spots to recommend in Ohio is Salt Fork. They actually have a place called Bigfoot Ridge, and it's on the sign and everything, Bigfoot Ridge. And a lot of the Ohio Bigfoot conferences and campouts, take place there. But before all that, my grandpa used to take us fishing there as a kid, and I don't really remember anything happening too intense, but I just remember the talk of Bigfoot. And sometimes that's all that's got to be alive, is just the talk of it, and then it will reveal itself. I also think that's very important. Just being aware allows for information to come in. There's a lot of people saying that Bigfoot needs to be killed or captured to finally get some research done with this situation or subject. I am very against that. One, because they have already been captured, they've already been killed in higher numbers than you would expect, so that would not solve anything. There is a really cool story about an Alabama asylum that in the 80s they actually captured a wild man, and more than a dozen correctional officers laid eyes on this. And one of the correctional officers did a eyewitness testimony on a podcast, Bigfoot Odyssey. It's very cool, very crazy stuff. Back on the things where people say Sasquatch is magical. Well, I believe we're magical. And a couple more of the things that are just seen in nature that maybe are taken as magical. I believe that Bigfoot would have infrasound. Very similar to big cats like lions, how they can grow at such a low tone that it could nauseate you or make you dizzy. Or maybe in some cases, as the ancient one, maybe they've tapped so much into the energy, they could make you pass out or calm you. So I definitely believe that Sasquatch would have infrasound. Another one would be echolocating. As we know with dolphins, whales, and bats, they can set out their echolocating and basically map out like a cave system or a grid. Again, I believe that these Sasquatches are so in tune with Earth and unpoisoned from the modern world that they see this life like how they're actually supposed to. And I believe that they know exactly when we enter their grid through feelings of vibrations. We've also heard the stories of the Nox, how they communicate. I think that is very comparable to how elephants stomp, and they can communicate. They can stomp miles away from each other and communicate through the ground. Again, we wear shoes that are rubber to take us away from the feeling of that divine connection of our feet in the ground, or our feet in the earth. Sasquatch, he's been barefoot this whole time, so again, he's working on a top-notch level playing field. Camouflage. A lot of people have seen these octopuses, that they literally camouflage within a couple seconds. I don't believe that Sasquatches have that type of skin or ability, but their hair is hollow, and the way it is it blends in with what's behind them. We've seen this with white monkeys, where sometimes you can see the green behind them. We've seen it so much with Sasquatch, where there's legendary stories of it was there 1 second and then it disappeared. Was it literally disappearing, or is it just fading away? I don't know. That's where it kind of gets into energy form. Energy comes into two forms: particle and waveform. Particle is right now how we're all solid. Waveform is waveform, like energy, like it's no matter. So I believe in the truest moments. Maybe if you type, step into a vortex or a portal, or maybe put into a dark area, maybe we could change into waveform. I'm not sure, but maybe that could explain some of the people that are unexplained experiences through missing 411. Grown men or old men that are found 8 miles up a mountain, young children that are covered in scratches found 20 miles across the way throughout the night. Just unexplained things. And then, of course, people, all their gear and their guns going to be right next to their hunting spot, and they're just gone. So strange things are happening. So again, I think it's interesting, but I'm also saying this like a warning. Please be safe in the woods. Treat it very serious. Even a simple hike in the woods could end up being very dire. Tell people where you're at. If you can get one of those GPS global ones, get one of those. Definitely just be prepared, and always pack enough food and water as well. Because when crap happens out there, it's not cool. When you get turned around in the forest, it all looks the same. On my way up here, I took 431 for a little bit. 431 is known as the highway to hell because there's been missing people, cryptid sightings, and a lot of strange Native American legends. Also, then it leads to 65, and 65 is also very cursed. They say that there are sometimes shadows that are taller than the treetops that have been seen and witnessed by people driving down 65. I was keeping my eye out last night, but I highly recommend you guys keep your eyes peeled when you check it out. Also, on my way up here, I drove through Falkville, not very far from here. If you guys know about the legend of the Falkville Metal Man, it was an alien-type creature of a giant being that was in like a Tin Man suit. It literally looks like it's from the Wizard of Oz. There's pictures of it and everything. But I was hoping that there would be some Falkville residents here that could maybe bring me a little bit closer to the legend. Another favorite Alabama cryptid of mine is Two-Toed Tom. It is a 24-foot demon alligator. Some scary stuff. Of course, they say that like one of the biggest alligators is only 19 feet. Well, this is because he was more than an alligator. He was dark. The legend is that he was on a farmer's land, and he was killing all the cattle, and they ended up getting a bunch of dynamite and trying to blow him out of one of the ponds. Well, when they blew up all the dynamite, they heard a scream come from the other pond, and it was a young girl. Sadly, it was the grandfather's granddaughter, and they say Two-Toed Tom took her into the water and ate her, sadly. Nowadays, they say that Two-Toed Tom's descendants are all the way down into Florida and to Holmes Creek. And it's very cool to think that maybe the big top dog, Two-Toed Tom, has been mating and creating more offspring all these years. But every time I go kayaking in Holmes Creek, I love amping people up. I'm like, have you guys heard of Two-Toed Tom? And they're like, no. I'm like, it's a giant alligator here. And he likes bright kayaks. I always just say whatever the people are on, just to try to scare them. But then I also think about myself, and I'm on an inflatable kayak, so then I'm like, I better figure it out too. A couple other cool cryptids that are from, of course, the Alabama area is the Alabama white thing. It's a white-type creature that has been spotted from Huntsville all the way down to Dothan. So literally the whole state of Alabama. One of my favorite footage is this guy's in his backyard with like a spotlight, and he's just flashing it, and then boom, a white face with brown eyes. Literally, it looks like a white version of Patty. And then he bolts away. And if that was a mask, then they tricked a guy that does filmmaking for a living. So good on them. I also want to touch back on the Patty situation. A lot of people say and believe that it was a suit. I do not believe it was a suit. You could see her breast moving. You could see her muscle moving in her leg. And also could see a wound on her because I believe she was shot at one point. They asked Disney if they could recreate the suit that was in the video, and they said no way, no how. And the best comparison is to look at the original Planet of the Apes movies, which came out shortly after it. And if those are the best looking ape suits, then there is no way they made a Sasquatch suit that was five days worth into the woods. It's definitely some crazy stuff. I'm nearing the end of my speech here, and I just want to let you guys know where a couple things you can find me. My name is Connor Flynn, ConnorFlynn. If you guys are into podcasts, search my name on podcasts, and I have hundreds of hours just ranting and raving about all the strange stuff in this world. I know Flat Rock gets a kick out of them. The first podcast I was on, they were good guys, but they were coming from a place of disbelief about the Sasquatch, and I was getting all amped up and screaming at the screen and just so passionate. And I definitely still have some of that fire in me, but now we gotta attack it at a different angle. But I know Flat Rock says I gotta get loud and proud and bust these doors down here soon. But I have written 5 books as well. They are on Amazon. As you can tell probably just from hearing me rant and rave, I have a lot of thoughts and just like different angles at this. So it's very nice when I can write it down on paper and kind of like unburden myself of it, because there's just so many thoughts in my head and I'm trying to get them out to the right people. So when I get it written down, there's just less I gotta carry. The first book was Erie Swamps Road Trip to Eden, and it talked about my journey from Lake Erie down to the Florida swamps, and the final chapter is the Garden of Eden Trail, where I believe life began. It's a very magical thing. My follow-up book was Big Brother Bigfoot. This is a Bigfoot conference, so I definitely would recommend that one. It's about 16 different Bigfoot-type creatures from here to California, Canada to Florida, Mississippi, all the different type of creatures that I've researched and what came with it. It's free to read on Kindle. Please check it out. Feel free to buy a copy of the book as well. There's 3 more books that came out, and it's just a bunch more crazy stories.
How much are the books?
Books are $10, and they are even cheaper online to save the paper. Save the paper, save the world, save the trees. A couple cool movies that were filmed in Alabama, if you guys are fans of filming locations. Big Fish, it's Tim Burton's movie. I actually stopped by the church last night that the finale hung out at. It's Edward Bloom's funeral finale, and you see that all the legends come true. So I believe that there's always something to it. Get Out, that one movie with Jordan Peele, where it was about mind control. They filmed that near Mobile. And also, Encounters of the Fourth Kind. And that was also filmed in Mobile. Of course, the famous spot is over at the Devil's Tower, but they also filmed in Mobile, Alabama. Mobile has 2 really fun cryptids that I gotta tell you about real quick. One is the Mobile Leprechaun. I don't know if you guys remember, probably like 12 years ago, there was a neighborhood full of people that said they saw a leprechaun up in the woods, and they were all rattled by it, and some people even drew a picture. And that was like some of the early viral video stuff on the internet, and it's just very fun to kind of see it come full circle that there might be something to it. But then there's my favorite, is the Mobile Wolf Woman, and it's a she-wolf. And from the reported sightings and drawings, she's pretty good looking. So when I was in Mobile camping, I was kind of hoping for a visit from her. But then I've also heard stories of Bigfoot, female Sasquatch, capturing men for like sex slaves, and it's brutal. The one story I heard, she licked a man's palms and the bottom of her feet raw, licked them raw, and then threw him in a pit so he couldn't end up escaping. So that's kind of crazy. Eventually he got out, I guess, because the story was told. I'm sure you guys have heard the story of Albert Osman. where he was a hunter and ended up getting captured by Bigfoot, a Bigfoot family, and they were keeping him like captive, and he had dip, chewing tobacco in his pocket, and he somehow tricked the adult Bigfoot to eat all the chewing tobacco, got deathly sick, and he was able to escape right in front of the mother Bigfoot and children Bigfoot. So some crazy stuff. And then my second favorite president, I'm related to JFK, so JFK takes the lead. But Teddy Roosevelt, one of the best men ever in America, he founded the national parks. Of course, national parks is where a lot of this weird crap's happening. So was there a treaty back in the day? Maybe. But Teddy Roosevelt actually wrote a book about a hunter that got kidnapped. And he wrote it in third person because Teddy Roosevelt had a lot of goals and dreams to take care of in his future, and he knew that talking about Bigfoot kind of puts you in a box of being looked at differently. Well, what a lot of people believe is that Teddy Roosevelt was actually the man captured by Bigfoot, but he wrote it as third person so that way he could kind of continue his life going on. But how crazy. Like, some people don't believe in Bigfoot, and I'm here saying one of our American presidents was kidnapped by Bigfoot. So it's just some hardcore, crazy stuff. But if you guys are big fans of YouTube, watching people search for Bigfoot, please look me up, Bigfoot Anon, A-N-O-N, short for anonymous. Again, I have hundreds of hours going to some of the coolest locations and alone and with teams diving in and really just bringing you guys along with me. And you guys are here now, so you guys can get out and about, but there's a bunch of people that can't make it here today, that can't make it out hiking, so it's important for them, to tap in as well. And it's cool when, handicapped people or older people say, "Thank you so much, Connor, for taking me on the hike with you." And that's all I ever wanted to do. I always loved fun facts and cool knowledge, and I thought this world deserved more of it. So basically, I just tried to give little blurbs of cool spots I ever went to, and I try to encourage people to do the same. There's mysteries and legends right down the road, right down the family tree. I bet everybody's family has some kind of cool story. You just gotta hunt for it and be open to asking for it. I think having an open mind is very important, but you still have to be skeptical, because nowadays with AI and hoaxers and the monetary value behind getting evidence, you always have to look at it with a brave eye and eagle eye. But thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Thank you so much to Ken and Sasquatch the Legend for putting on this event. I really hope that they bring me out to Washington one day. It's my dream to go to the Pacific Northwest and to camp and look for Sasquatch. I also want to go where they shot Goonies, Kindergarten Cop, and Twilight. I'm not all the way into Twilight, but I can appreciate some werewolves and vampires and just some magic abilities. But thank you so much. We're gonna have a couple people tell their encounters, hopefully, in between me and Stacy Brown. Definitely stop by some of our booths and feel free to support some of the creators or even take pictures with us. We'd be glad to take some pictures for social media or anything. It's all about this. A few years ago, I was you guys just sitting in the stands watching my favorite Bigfooters. So if you guys have any hopes and dreams to get your voice out there, do it. You only live once, and regret carries a lot more than just following your dreams, for sure. But thanks for coming, everybody, and come on to my booth if you have any more questions, and I'll catch you guys on the round table. We also have a bunch more raffle tickets. I know a couple new faces came in. It is a free raffle. All you have to do is write your name, or even just write your rip off one of the halves and then keep the other half. And soon we'll be pulling some winners. But thank you guys so much for being patient and sticking with me in my crazy rant. But I'm very passionate about this, and I believe this world needs more people that live in color, for sure. And the world's not black and white. The truth is just not simple. You just got to dive deep into it. And there's so many legends out there. So many cryptids, and I feel like I'm just tapping into it, so I invite you guys along to join on the journey. Thank you, guys.